one of the main things that has been hindering the X-Men in recent years is the fact that Marvel and the writers and stuff keep trying to turn the X-Men into allegories for the LGBT and trans movement and trying to paint them like minorities and all these different things instead of acting like they're people with abilities, and it just does not work. Well, recently, Chris Claremont, one of the legendary X-Men writers, came out and had a problem and said that it shouldn't be done like that. Now, Chris Claremont is noted with being the man who basically kind of helped revive the X-Men and turn them into the #1 team over at Marvel. Most people think it's the Avengers, but it really isn't. In terms of their sales and popularity alone, the X-Men always rank higher than the Avengers. That is just a fact. And like I said, Chris Claremont came out and said some certain things about it. I'm going to go through that in this article here from Popverse. Marvel's X-Men and all mutants shouldn't be pigeonholed as minorities by us or them, says veteran writer Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont says, we should view mutants as unique individuals, not as minorities. This is something that should always be. They should not be viewed as minorities because they keep trying to turn them into something that they're not. The X-Men are people. That's their whole thing about it. All right. It's not easy being a mutant in the Marvel Universe. While superheroes like Captain America and Thor are celebrated and adored, the public has made mutant heroes like Cyclops and Nightcrawler into pariahs. Since their debut in 1963, the X-Men have been persecuted by society. Multiple storylines involve the team being hunted and imprisoned by government officials. Now, there are really two reasons for this. There is the actual reason, and then there's the reason within the Marvel Universe. I'm going to give you the actual reason first. When Stan Lee created the X-Men, he basically created them out of laziness. He didn't want to always have to be coming up with a reason for somebody to have these powers or these abilities and things like that. He just wanted to be able to say, okay, you know what, this person's a mutant, they have that ability, that's it. And the thing is that he decided when he did that, instead of having them loved, why not create a group of heroes who are despised? You know, because they're mutants, people don't like them. That was really the reasoning behind the X-Men and why they're hated and hunted and all of that. That's the reason behind it, because he basically wanted a lazy way to create heroes without having to go through the whole backstory reason with them of how they would have gotten their powers. And he also wanted to do it in such a way where you have heroes who aren't loved, who aren't adored. You know, it was a real groundbreaking move, and he did that. So that's why he did it. Now, as I said, the two reasons. The second reason lies within the Marvel Universe. And that is because mutants are the next evolutionary stage for humans. And the thing is that when any species evolves, they always eventually overtake and wipe out the previous species. So Homo sapiens evolved to Homo superiors, which is what mutants are. So the reason why most people despise mutants is because they see them as an evolution of humanity, and that following the concept of what normally happens, Homo sapiens will get wiped out by Homo superiors, which is what the mutants are. And I don't mean by them just going and killing them. Eventually, everybody will become a mutant, and then they won't have anything like that. That's the whole reasoning that they give behind it. So that's really the main reason. I mean, yes, other people, because when you look at it, it doesn't make sense, because you have other heroes in the Marvel Universe who aren't persecuted like the X-Men. But that's the reason why. And because they can't tell good stories around that, they keep going back to the well to try and drink from it, and that's why we keep getting some crappy X-Men stories. But that's really the main reason. Let's get back to the article. Readers and scholars have compared the mutant experience to the civil rights movement, noting that the X-Men face the same type of persecution as minorities. Now, the thing is, I mentioned the civil rights here. This is something where people have a misconception in regards to it. A lot of people tend to think that the X-Men are based on the civil rights movement, when that is not the truth at all. People often tend to believe that, Charles Xavier and Magneto are basically like Malcolm X and things like that, well, that's what they keep throwing around it with it. That isn't a fact at all. As they say, some people have compared them to that, but that is not how the X-Men were not created for that reason. They have no connection to that. Nothing. People just compare it, and yes, they may occasionally have some stories that may have had influence from the civil rights movement, but that is not in any way, shape, or form connected to what the X-Men are about. So that's a common misconception that a lot of people tend to have. However, longtime X-Men writer Chris Claremont says that it's more nuanced than that. In fact, he doesn't agree with the X-Men being labeled as minorities. Neither do I. During a panel at Comic Con XP 2024, the legendary X-Men writer spoke about the relationships mutants have with society. The challenge is to see themselves at the school as minorities. That's Charlie's job. That's Magneto's job. From my perception, what they are is a half dozen, maybe a dozen kids, young people living together, but looking on themselves as ordinary people. And this is the only thing that a lot of these writers tend to miss. The X-Men never looked at themselves as any kind of minority or anything. Charles Xavier saw them as mutants, and he wanted to build a dream, of mutants and humans working together. Whereas you had Magneto, who was basically the opposite, and saying that, mutants are superior, they should rule over humans, or they should be completely separate from humans, and like that was Magneto's thing. So the two of them were the ones who were looking at it from that perspective. But the mutants themselves, they were just people. Yes, they were being persecuted, but that was that. They were being persecuted because they were mutants. They never looked at themselves as minorities. And again, there are all kinds of different races, genders, and ethnicities when it comes to mutants. Storm is black. Kitty Pryde is Jewish. Nightcrawler is Christian. You understand me? Colossus is Russian. There are different ethnicities, races, all these things connected to the X-Men. All of them. Jubilee is part Chinese American, and like that. She's part Chinese. That's it. Part Asian, I should say. That's it. There are many different things connected with them, but they never looked at it like that. They were just people. But you see, a lot of these writers nowadays can't separate that. They keep trying to push this whole, mutants are minorities. Let's keep hammering that home until it sticks. What did you want? They have abilities. Yeah, Leonard Bernstein had abilities. From their perspective, it's not much different. He composed and played brilliant music. They saved the world, A and B. The key is to think of them as people, not as heroes. Not yes, I am a minority. No, you're a person who's trying to live a normal life. Other people may see you as a minority. You may react to them as a minority. You may look at yourself objectively as a minority. But as a person, you're a person. And that's the truth. Yes, they have abilities. Yes, they saved the world, but they're just ordinary people. I think the biggest way to really classify this is if you look at Superman, for instance. I know it's DC, but let's hear me out for a moment. Superman is the most powerful man in the universe, right? Most powerful man in the universe. He's the top tier hero and everything like that. He has abilities that basically make him god tier, right? That's what Superman is. But Superman has never looked at himself as being superior to anybody. He's just an ordinary guy in his mind who has these abilities and does what he can to help people. That's how he looks at it. Others don't look at it like that. And I've always argued that one of the reasons that Lex Luthor wants to destroy Superman. I mean, the main reason he tends to give is that he believes that, Superman stands for humanity becoming lazy and no longer evolving. But my thing about it is that I would be that, Superman embodies everything that humanity should be. That everything that humanity claims to be, Superman embodies that. And by embodied, I mean in his ideas and in his ideals and things that he does. That's what I mean. And because of that, that's why Lex Luthor really hates him, because Superman, being an alien, is more human than most humans. So when you look at the X-Men now, yes, they have powers, yes, they have abilities, but they're just people. They could do things. Storm could control the weather. Wolverine shoots claws or pops claws out of his hands. Nightcrawler could teleport, and yes, he does look somewhat demonic, but still, Cyclops could shoot beams out of his eyes. Jean Grey is one of the most powerful telepaths in the world. All these things, but they're just people at heart. They don't look at themselves as being superior like that. And that's how they just want people to look at them. When they do what they do, they do what they do. But then they're people otherwise. That's it. Nightcrawler is the most dynamic non-human physically in the team. But his attitude is, I am the person God made. Exactly. Who am I to argue with God? I'm just going to live my life like a normal guy and see what happens next. Yes, he used to hide the way he looked because he's not stupid. Blue skin, 2 fingers, 2 toes, and a tail definitely make you stand out from the crowd. It took Logan to challenge him to take off the mask and be a normal person and see if anybody else notices, to get him to do it. But other than that, he just tried to live a normal, cool life as someone who loves acting, who is a theater performer, and who is a stuntman. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the thing. Like I said, Nightcrawler is the most non-human physicality. You look at Nightcrawler and you're going to think, okay, this guy doesn't look human. But I said he's just the person God made. Nightcrawler was a devout Christian. He even became a priest until they decided to go in and screw it up, and I think the X-Men got their own religion or all kind of crap like that. They just really, Krakoa just ruined everything. Then they had that whole thing with Mystique being Nightcrawler's dad, where she basically shapeshift into a man, gave it to a lesbian lover good, and then that's how Nightcrawler was born. I mean, then to be fair, Chris Claremont was the one who actually wanted to do that before, but they kind of shut that idea down. I'm just saying. Now they kind of make it even more stupid, but that's really what they were doing. That's the whole thing about it. So we could say what we say and what we do, but that's just the long and short of it. As I say, Nightcrawler isn't stupid. He knew that having blue skin, 2 fingers, 2 toes, and a tail would definitely make him stand out from the crowd. And in X-Men Evolution, he actually got a girlfriend who actually liked the way that he looked. She liked him and wanted her family to meet him without the image inducer. She wanted that. That was the thing about it. So that was another interesting dynamic. But that was the thing about it. People will look at Nightcrawler and think he's some kind of demon. They even tried the whole Azazel is his father kind of nonsense or whatever. But I'm just saying, that's the thing about it. X-Men are the people. And when you look at the very nexus of these stories and these characters, that's who they are. They aren't minorities. They never thought of themselves as minorities. The majority of mutants look human. They go out there. I think unless they use their powers, you wouldn't know. But apart from Nightcrawler and Beast, who you could tell from their physical appearance, and Spike, you could tell that they are mutants. Okay, other than that, they're just people. And you get that they are just people, that's it. But you don't act like, it's the same persecution black people for not. No, it isn't. It isn't. It doesn't even add up. But that's what they keep doing. That is the way you should look at these characters. Not as characters, not as objective concept, but as ordinary, normal, really cool people. Exactly. The rest of it falls into place. But you can look around this room and the people around this table, oh, look, that's an X person. How do you know? Well, it looks sort of like Colossus. How do you know? Well, doesn't it may be Peter Rasputin, but who knows? You just see him as a person, not as Colossus. Unless Colossus goes metal skin, you can't tell he just looks like an ordinary big Russian dude. That's it. That's it. That's about it. They're just ordinary people. And you can't tell most mutants are mutants unless they use their powers. And like I said, in the Marvel Universe, you have a lot of superheroes who can use powers. Johnny Storm could literally turn into fire. He flies on, his whole body gets encased in it. Does anybody look at Johnny Storm and think, okay, he's a mutant? No. But that's what I'm saying. And this is the really part about it. The X-Men are not minorities, they're just people. That's it. And I think Chris Claremont hit the nail on the head here. But this one, trying to classify the mutants as minorities, one of the things that continue to ruin X-Men comics. That's basically what they did with Krakoa. When the X-Men embraced everything that Magneto was about, and it led to one of the worst runs ever. Other people just want to forget it, but that's what it is. That's what they did. So pretending not like it's something else isn't going to work. Chris Claremont said it here, and I think it's something I have been saying for a long time. I even did a video about how the X-Men are not woke, and I covered that. The X-Men are just people. That's who they are. Stop trying to plaster them as some kind of allegory for LGBTQ and trans and minority. It does not work. That's not who they are. It's never been who they are. And the more you keep doing it, the more you keep destroying what the X-Men are and why fans like them. They're outsiders, yes, but they're just people. Like all of us, we're just people. That's what draws people to the X-Men. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell to be notified every time I put out a new video. And I shall see you all next time. Take care. Audio